Welcome to the special episode of Ask Faleskini with a guest. I'm proud to present Teré Foster from ARC7 community. This is the fifth of the seven-part series about the ARC7 community. Today, we're going to discuss how the ARC7 community will be built from the inside out. Teré, welcome back to the show. Nice to have you back, and let's jump right into it.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, in the fifth chapter, you took us in a bit of a different direction. Your book was more hands-on in the first four chapters, and in the fifth chapter, you went more into spiritual growth. Instead of design and building on archaeology. Could you share a little bit more about this spiritual growth that you have envisioned for the ARC7 community?
Yeah, well, so the idea is that if we build from the inside out, that means one meaning would be that we build who's going to live inside first, and then worry about the building itself. Another way to look at it is building those people who will live there inside first, meaning their goals, their objectives, their spiritual growth, their the way they process things that they would be taught in the certification, how to manage life in an arcology so that it would turn out different than it would otherwise without that training. So that's the idea of building from the inside out, the people who will be in it and their insides, their heart and soul and motivations.
Could we just take a couple of parallels? For example, if you want to be a citizen of Switzerland and you're not born there, you need to take a special exam. And you need to know about all the cantons and all the local stuff and legislation and everything. Did you envision something similar for the ARC7 community? Would people be forced to take an exam or at least get a certification in order to be eligible to become part of the community? And how will you treat people with children? Because children with a young age, they probably cannot do the exam. Should they be obligated to do the exam when they get of age? Or, and if they fail the exam, they will be kicked out of the community. How did you envision that?
So yes, you would have to have certification for each person who gets involved, who wants to be involved. You would need to teach the children young, especially because it's not that difficult. It's not like it's rocket science. It's just how to contribute, how to care about people, how to treat people with respect, which we've largely lost in some of our cultures, for sure in America, where they just don't really have any concept of just basic civility and kindness in some places in America. So that's what I was looking for, is how to create a society where if it's service to self, focused on service to self instead of, I mean, the other way around, focused on service to others. That's what I would like to see, is to experiment with teaching that concept and then watch it unfold.
Yeah, but in the schools in US and all over the Western world, they teach us basics and how to act and how the society work. But people just don't care. How would you enforce that in your community? What would you do with people that do not comply?
Well, you're talking about youth or just
Yes.
everybody?
Yes.
Everybody. Okay. So, the training, I'm going to rely on that training. I think that people who are going through this training would resonate with it or not and quit, right? During that process. It's like, this is not for me. And I'm hoping that the certification process in itself will be a big sifting and sorting of people. They will not want to go forward unless they really like the idea and really embrace the concepts. And if they do embrace those concepts, then from there it's easy, right? Because nobody's going to be resistant. But I can see that, like you're talking about, the youth would be another whole another factor, is that as you're watching people grow up and they're coming into this society, moving around in with people who are treating them with respect and kindness and teaching them how to contribute and welcoming them as a human being. That means that hopefully they would learn that and they would reflect that and easily become that. So that's what we do, right? That we are a reflection of our parents and our upbringing. And then also we're a reflection of all this, the news media and the things we see on TV and the people that we're meeting around us. So that's what I'm hoping, is it's just going to be something where if everybody is treating each other with respect, it'll just be easy to do. So easy to match. And if you don't match that frequency, you won't want to be there. That's my guess, is that you wouldn't want to be there if you didn't match it. I think it would, I guess I just keep thinking that it will be its own self-regulating system, just like the human body or something like that, where if it's not going to feel right, those people won't want to be there, and they'll just excuse themselves. And so what do you feel? Do you feel like it should be more drastic? Like, if you're disrespectful 5 times, then you're out.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is that people change. And
Yes.
if they just have an, let's call it, entry exam, they might be able to do it, but then something can happen to them and they became a completely different person because of the traumas and something like that. And
Yes,
then they
trauma
might be,
is a big factor.
yeah, and
Well,
then
again,
they might be a problem in the society. So how do you plan to manage that?
when someone's in trauma,
Yeah.
okay, so in theory, right, when someone's in trauma and everyone in that community has been trained and taught how to recognize trauma, how to care for it, how to understand it and have patience, then of course that would be the most wonderful environment for someone going through trauma. So that would, in theory, that would be an environment that someone would heal very quickly and be grateful that they were in that environment. So I have heard that, like in some countries, I think it was Sweden or something like that, when someone is having a real difficult time and mental illness or whatever, they will put them with a very wonderful, supportive family or something like that. Is I have no proof about that, but it sounded like, wow, that is so different. That's such a different way of approaching it, where most of us think, oh, if someone's going through something bad and they're irritable and they're mean or they're whatever, just get them out of here, put them away somewhere, get them away from us, instead of feeling like, okay, this is a person we need to take care of and tend to, and look for ways to heal.
Yeah, that is the best case scenario, because if you have someone that is dealing with his or her trauma the way that they inflict pain to others or stuff like that, then it's much more demanding to solve their problem, and the integration in a community might not be the best scenario for them, especially if you don't want to destroy the whole community.
Yeah, true.
So I do believe this will be a huge challenge when you start building it. I would also like to ask you another thing, because you're talking so much about the spiritual growth, and everyone will need to have a certification and all this stuff. Is ARC7 going to be a community, or it's going to be its own church? How do you plan to organize that? Is that a separate religion? How do you see ARC7 community?
So yes, and yes. So it's a community. And I think in the legal sense, it will be a church. And there will be many benefits for it to be organized as a legal entity of a church, because then we can receive donations and function like a church. So best case scenario, we see churches that get really huge. They get a lot of funds coming in. They're able to buy land, build a big church. This happens in America a lot, where we call them a mega church. And this leader is dynamic, whatever. Somehow he gets more than anybody else coming to his church. They have a big budget to work with, and they end up buying land and building this gigantic church that can hold everybody at one time. Well, in my view of that, there's a couple things wrong with that and a couple things good about that. One is that it's this very wonderful way of pooling assets of a whole group, pooling assets and getting rich. But what to do with those funds doesn't quite match with what I've envisioned. Is that, okay, a building where we can meet, that's great, but there's so many other needs that could be met with that money. It doesn't have to only be this building where you meet. I don't know who decided that that's what you do, but that's what they do here in America. So to me, you could build ARC7, and that everybody then would be taken care of. Everybody is pooling assets for a good reason, and that the money would be in overseen by the group itself, rather than by one pastor who may or may not be honest with the funds and using it for good purposes. A lot of times I see them also taking those funds and using them for purposes outside of the country, like doing good things in third world countries or something like that. There's no problem with that, as long as first you take care of the needs of the people within your congregation. So that's what I meant by forming a church, is just to be able to use the legal entity to pool assets and then do really great things with the funds based on what the group itself would vote to do, which ARC7, building ARC7 is what we would be working together to do.
How far are you from
registering
the church in the US?
Well, you don't have to register a church. From what I understand, you don't even have to register a church. They don't have any legal. I need probably to have attorneys, in on this and tell me more details about this. But when I was reading and studying all of this, A church is just a church. You can meet as long as you've got 2 or 3 people, you're a church. You don't need to claim it or, name it or whatever. You just have to have people who say they belong together in a church and it's a church. If you want to be a 501c3, which is the code for being a nonprofit, then there is something you do have to apply for, but then you also invite the scrutiny of the government and have to, file tax returns and all that. But churches don't file tax returns. So to me, it just seems a little bit, I just envision being exactly like the mega churches in America, except for the insides, the inner workings is slightly different. But the government entity is the same as a mega church.
Okay. Thank you very much for all this explanation. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close this 5th episode?
Yes. So when we talk about a church, there's always just one guy, right? And I don't see it that way. I see each person as they're coming in, they're each getting certified, and they're each having their own kind of strength and something that they contribute, that there's no reason to feature anybody as the guy. It can be everybody, and they can contribute as lay ministers and share things, in a church setting, but also everybody will have been trained to teach and to be basically life coaches. I think a lot of people are calling themselves life coaches who 20 or 30 years ago would have called themselves a pastor or desired to be a pastor. The problem today is that the pastor, most people are not that who, oh gosh, tongue-tied. Those who are really feeling the spiritual pull in their lives to become more spiritual and become a spiritual leader also seem to be kind of leaving the established churches. They're not necessarily vibing with the old ideas that you have to do this and you can't do that and only these are acceptable and those people are not acceptable. Nobody is really vibing with that idea anymore, and so a lot of people are leaving the churches. So what I see is that we need a new church entity that just doesn't do that, and that these new spiritual leaders that are calling themselves life coaches will start to feel like they want to be part of ARC7 so that they could be a pastor or a spiritual leader and get paid to do that like other spiritual leaders do, and pastors. And so it's about getting funding and being able to make money without having to become part of this newfound kind of religious thing where everybody's trying to be a life coach, and then they have to get into this marketing thing and making money and like high ticket offers and all this stuff. I really think those are kind of competing ideas. Of one is to serve mankind and the other is to make high ticket offers. So I am just looking at it as a way to gather those people who are feeling like spiritual leaders, who want to develop their spirituality and become a leader in their local area as well as online, and then they can be a leader in ARC7 without being without having to do the whole marketing thing. So I hope I said that correctly.
Thank you very much. And I will invite our readers to download your book and to check the chapter number 5, the one that we have discussed today. And thank you, Teré, for being my guest tonight.
Thank you. You can find the download of the book right there at ARC7.Guru. It's right on the homepage, so you can download it and read it right now.
Thank you. I will include links in the description.
All right. Thank you so much.